Hi everyone, this is Annindita Palaus, and today I am back with another new video on another very commonly asked question, and that is on the topic of self-love or even worthiness, and how to develop self-love or how to enhance the sense of worthiness. And if you have been on a journey, on your spiritual journey for some time, then you already probably know how important self-love is. The reason being that everything you see in the outside world is a reflection of your inner world. And so if you're trying to manifest anything in your life, if you're trying to create anything, then it is important that you have a feeling of worthiness or a feeling of self-love. Because when you have feelings of unworthiness, then manifestations become very hard. Because even though you do everything, you are visualizing, doing affirmations, meditating, but at your core level, you believe that you are unworthy of it, you don't deserve it, because you are unlovable or in some way you are less than anybody else. And then you start self-sabotaging your own progress. And that's why if you're trying to achieve anything in life, whatever it might be, it is important that the first thing you start working on is your sense of self-love or your sense of self-worth. There are many people who are very successful in their life without having self-love or without feeling worthy. And the thing is, when you do end up manifesting something in your life, but you still feel unworthy or unlovable, then first of all, the manifestations are hard. It takes way more effort. And secondly, even after you have manifested all that you want, you are still not happy. It doesn't bring you the happiness that you thought you would get from manifesting those desires or those goals. Here are my top 3 signs that indicate that you lack self-love. And in fact, these 3 signs are also the 3 reasons why you should work on enhancing your self-love. First of all, when you lack self-love, there is also a lack of authenticity. That is because people who don't have self-love, they would often try to mimic somebody else. They would try to overanalyze every situation because they are just trying to please everybody else. They're trying to make everybody else happy by saying things or doing things that they think others want them to say, that they think others want to hear from them, that they think that others want them to do. So they are constantly overanalyzing everything and constantly trying to figure out what to say, what to do, how to behave, how to be, instead of just being authentic and true to their core, true to their heart, just following their heart. They find it difficult to follow their heart because they lack that authenticity out of the fear of being judged or misunderstood and not loved by others. There is this constant need for approval. The need for approval is a basic human need. We all have the need for approval. And there is nothing wrong in having approval from others. But when you start needing it, then your whole life is revolving around how to please others. And you might even feel like a chameleon. I have come across people who told me that they feel like a chameleon, and when we went a little bit deeper, I realized that it is really from a feeling of unworthiness. So when you feel unworthy, you will automatically be trying to do things to please others. But at your core level, you know that you are not being authentic. So you start feeling like a chameleon. And because you feel that you are not enough, you're constantly chasing more and more. It's always like, what's next, what's next, what's next? But there is no feeling of satisfaction. Even when you achieve something big, the satisfaction is very less because your mind immediately jumps into, okay, what's next? What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to achieve? Secondly, there is also a lack of self-confidence because you are constantly comparing yourself with others. And even though you don't know their stories, even though you don't know their past, their history, their challenges, yet whatever you see on the outside is what you think they are or who you think they are. And then you constantly keep on comparing yourself with others. And this comparison, this constant comparison generates a sense of not enoughness. And I have often seen that people who have a low sense of self-worth or self-love, they would never be comparing themselves with those who are a little less than them so that they can feel better about themselves. But they will always be comparing themselves with someone they perceive to be better than themselves in some way, any way, shape or form, and just make themselves feel miserable through that comparison. Because if you really have to compare, the population of the world is over 8 billion, and there are billions of people who are living in such bad environment, who have literally nothing. There are people in the third world countries, and not just third world countries, there are people even in places like the US who have far from an ideal life situation. You could always be comparing yourself with those and feeling better and feeling grateful about your life. But no, I have seen that people who have low self-worth or low sense of self-love, they would always be comparing themselves with people in a manner that they can make themselves feel better. It is a self-sabotaging behavior that they don't realize. They feel that why should I be comparing myself with a homeless person and feel thankful that I have a home, I have a good job, I have a good life, I have a healthy body. They feel that no, I should be comparing myself with all those people, the rich billionaires, those with the perfect body and the perfect relationship and the perfect everything, without even knowing any of the background of those people, where they came from, what did they have to do to get that life that they have today. And this lack of authenticity and the lack of self-confidence combined together also leads to unstable relationships. Because think about it, when you are inauthentic and you also lack self-confidence, what kind of relationships would you be attracting? They cannot be authentic relationships, because authentic people attract authentic relationships. Inauthentic people will attract inauthentic relationships. And when you lack self-confidence and you are insecure, then you will be attracting automatically people in relationships who are there to use you or use your insecurity. Because that becomes a perfect vibrational match. It's like the victims always attract the victimizers, the aggressors. They are a perfect match to each other. And the third indicator of a lack of self-love, as well as the third reason why you should work on self-love and self-worth, is a lack of personal and mental hygiene. And what I mean by personal and mental hygiene is often people who have very low self-esteem, they will get into addictions. In order for them to not feel so bad about themselves, they have a tendency to get addicted. They could be addicted to drugs, it could be addicted to work, sex, alcohol, anything. Shopping, it could be anything. But any kind of addiction just to distract their mind from the constant chatter, the constant negative chatter that is pestering them all the time. So that's the physical hygiene part, where they fail to take care of their bodies the way they should. And then the mental hygiene part is that they tend to have a lot of negative self-talk, but there is a lack of mental discipline to keep that self-talk under control. And I have seen that even when they know what they should be doing, they still don't do it. It's like deliberately not doing what you know you need to do. For instance, even though you know that you need to be meditating in order to quiet that mental chatter, calm down that mental chatter, even though you know that you need to focus on your positive aspects, you still don't do it. And this is because when you inherently feel unworthy, then you even feel unworthy of self-care. And that's the reason why people who feel unworthy or who have lack of self-love also have a lack of self-care. Mental, physical, emotional self-care is missing because they even feel unworthy of that. They don't realize that consciously, but that is the program that is playing subconsciously, that I don't even deserve that. I'm not good enough anyways. Why should I be taking care of myself? So these are the three indications. If you have any of these tendencies, you have to be honest with yourself. And with a little bit of honest introspection, you would know that if you really lack authenticity in your interactions, if you have a sense of low self-confidence, you see that being reflected in your relationships at your workplace, combined with a low physical and mental hygiene, then these are the 4 things that you could start doing starting today to enhance your self-love. Number 1 is changing your inner dialogue. The change has to begin from within. You cannot expect people to start showing you a lot of love and respect if you don't have love and respect for yourself. So it has to begin from yourself. Like they say, charity begins at home. So you have to change your inner dialogue. And in order to change your inner dialogue, you have to become more mindful, more conscious of what your inner dialogues are. Just having 24/7 mindfulness of your mental chatter. And how do you develop mindfulness? That brings me to the second point, that is meditation and cultivating a practice of silence. And again, you have to be 100% honest with yourself here. Let's say on a scale of 0 to 10, ask yourself, where are you on your self-love or self-worthiness? 0 being no self-worthiness and 10 being 10 on 10 on self-love. If you are a 10 on 10, then you don't need to be watching this video. You should be doing something else. But if you're still watching this video, then I'm assuming that you want to work on your sense of worthiness or your self-love. So if you are anywhere between a 0 to a 5, I would suggest that at least once a week, you practice complete silence. And what I mean by that is no internet, no telephone, no TV, and not even reading newspapers, magazines, or any kind of books. No outside entertainment, no interaction with anybody of any kind. Complete silence for one whole day. And if you can, then just spend your time in nature as much as possible, but not in a crowded park or at a crowded beach. Away from everybody, just by yourself in solitude. And of course, daily practice of meditation is extremely important. Even if you are a 10 on 10 on the scale of self-worthiness, you should still consider meditating every single day. Because meditation allows you not only to enhance your ability to be mindful. Without meditation, like I said, the very first point was to become mindful of your inner chatter, of your inner voice, your self-talk. But in order to have that mindfulness, you also need to develop the practice of mindfulness. Of course, the more you meditate, the more you develop that practice. And then it is not so hard for you to catch yourself every time you have that negative mental chatter. Every time you go to a party and you start comparing yourself with somebody else. You look at somebody who's really good looking and you start saying that, I wish I had her skin, I wish I had her hair, I wish I had her life, or whatever it is. Or if you're a man, then you start comparing yourself with somebody else and maybe, thinking that, oh, of course he will not have a hard time finding a woman because he's so successful, he has so much money, this and that. Or whatever it might be that you compare yourself against. So the next time you start having this thoughts about yourself, about self-doubt, that look at me, I'm not the ideal size, I don't have the right skin color, I don't have blue eyes or golden hair, or I don't look like a Barbie doll, whatever it is that you are comparing yourself against. The next time you are going to be catching yourself sooner than once you are already down the rabbit hole feeling bad about yourself because you have been comparing yourself and feeling terrible about how bad you look or how unsuccessful you are in life or whatever it might be. People are so good at finding reasons at why they should feel terrible about themselves and why they should feel self-pity. I see everywhere people are so smart and yet they are using their intellect against themselves. Sometimes I even feel that it's good to be a little less smart because smart people often end up using their intellect against themselves and just torture themselves unnecessarily. It's nice to have a sharp intellect, but a sharp intellect is like a sharp tool. If you don't know how to use it, you will end up injuring yourself. So sometimes, if you're not there yet, maybe a sharp tool should not be given. But the universe has given us all this sharp intellect. And so it is time that we get the user's manual, so to speak, and it is time that we begin using this intellect to our advantage. And that's when meditation comes into picture. The third thing is writing a love letter to yourself. And again, on the scale of 0 to 10, if you are between 0 to 5, I would suggest that you take out time every single day and write a love letter to yourself. Imagine that you have fallen in love with yourself. Imagine you are head over heels in love with yourself. And then write a love letter to yourself every single day. Unless you feel that on the scale you have moved up to a 6 or a 7. Then you could start doing it once a week. And continue doing that unless you feel you are at least a 9, ideally a 10 on 10. And the fourth thing, I have sort of mentioned that already in point 2, but I feel like I need to mention that again as a separate point, and that is staying away from social media as much as possible. In fact, staying away from anything unhealthy that you have been using as a distraction to keep you distracted from facing your reality. Because often people who have very low self-esteem and lack sense of self-love, they feel so terrible inside because they're constantly having such negative, terrible thoughts about themselves all day long that they just cannot stand it anymore. And they need a break from that constant negative mental chatter. And often they resort to addictions or distractions. The distractions could be of any kind. It does not have to be an addiction, but maybe constantly keeping yourself busy, doing some kind of work, or maybe just becoming extremely social, having an extremely active social life, so much so that you have no time left for yourself. So you have to be honest to yourself. If what you are doing out of passion, that is one thing. But if what you're doing just because you don't want to face your reality, or you want to run away from your mental noise, your mental chatter, then you are using that thing as a distraction. And that distraction is not going to work in the long run, because that mental chatter is going to get louder and louder and louder unless you are forced to do something about it. In fact, I think it is very cool that the universe has its own ways of bringing people to a higher vibrational level. That at first it starts giving you gentle nudges. Then the nudges become a little bit stronger and stronger and stronger. Eventually it will manifest into something so big that you cannot ignore it. You cannot avoid or deny it. But before it becomes that big, you don't really have to torture yourself so much. You can start taking action today. And so staying away from social media and instead using that energy, maybe on a hobby, something that you have always wanted to learn or do, using your energy towards that is a great idea. Because social media is known not just to make people feel restless, but it also enhances the sense of insecurity or unworthiness or lack of self-love. It enhances your need to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. That's just how social media is designed. So instead of spending so much time on social media, use that time on a hobby that will make you happy, something that you have always wanted to learn. And you will see that just by doing something that makes you happy also helps a lot in enhancing your sense of self-love. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you like it, then share it with someone you feel would really benefit from listening to this. And as always, remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.